Welcome to KWWC. Kevin Walsh here to talk all things AEW. Going to talk about Fyter Fest. Going to talk about some of the big news pieces that surround AEW this week. I will say it's not going to be a full breakdown of Fyter Fest, mainly because we're kind of far removed from it. It happened last Saturday. I really should have recapped the show immediately after it happened or the day after it happened. I thought that waiting for BTE was a good idea, and it was a mistake. And then I thought maybe wait for Road 2, because it seemed like a show that I needed the episode of BTE to really give a full recap, and I didn't. I was completely wrong. Road 2 had a lot more on it, but there's so much stuff that I don't want this to be an hour-long video. Next Saturday is Fight for the Fallen. I'm going to be recapping that a lot closer to when that show finishes than I am doing Fyter Fest. But there's still a lot of important stuff that happened on Fyter Fest, and I still want to talk about it to some degree. So that is exactly what I'm going to do here. Before I quickly recap everything, I am still going to go in-depth on everything surrounding Cody versus Darby Allin. This was the most important thing on the show. It ended up being the most important thing on the show long-term for AEW for a number of reasons. First of all, the match. The match was terrific. The match blew past my expectations. I thought it was going to be good. It was great. And probably the reason it blew past my expectations, I had not watched enough Darby Allin before this match, but I look forward now to watching a lot more Darby Allin because he was fantastic in this match. Cody is also now 2 for 2 in his AEW performances. I think that his character work is right up there with the absolute best in the world. Sometimes, though, the matches can be a bit sluggish. That has not been the case here so far in AEW. They've been perfect, honestly, for Cody. I've been so impressed with his 2 performances for AEW so far. The decision to go to a 20-minute time limit draw was also perfect. When I did the predictions, I said there was a chance that they go for the shock victory here and give Darby the win. Had I thought about draws, had I thought that they would actually go for a draw, that would have made so much more sense than going for the win for Darby, because you don't want Cody to lose, but you also don't want Darby to lose, and it fits their characters so well, I believe. Cody didn't come into this match with that deep backstory that he usually does. This deep backstory that will exist in his next feud, which is likely going to be Shawn Spears, or his most recent feud with his brother, Dustin Rhodes. That didn't exist, so him not having a sense of urgency and fire to finish this match within the 20 minutes, that makes sense. Darby being as relentless as he is, it sets the precedent that there is no easy way to beat Darby Allin. Despite his size, despite his stature, every single time it is going to take everything you have to beat him. And that is perfect. That is exactly how you should present Darby. I think for character purposes and to really understand who he is, a draw was better than a win. I really do believe that. And AEW now, quickly on their second show, establishes a draw as a real possibility for any of their matches that has a time limit. That's perfect. That's exactly what you should do, because if you don't do that in the early stages, then when we get a draw, it's going to be like, wait, what? How? Why? They established that right away. That is perfect. The question that will still remain is if we're going to get an overtime period, or if it's going to be optional, how they're going to handle matches actually going to a draw. Right now, it doesn't seem like wrestling fans love draws, and they want decisive winners, and that's what AEW is promising for the most part, right, is decisive winners. That's why wins and losses matter so much. But a draw is always an option, as in sports. If you think about Tony Khan, his background with Fulham soccer, there's draws. Or you even think about his background with the Jaguars, where there's overtime, but if you don't have a clear winner by the time overtime's over, you get a tie. Having that as an option makes sense in AEW, but the question will remain with the overtime period, because Cody was holding up 5 for 5 more minutes. When this happened, the question still remains, is there going to be an overtime period? What happens if there is an extra 5 minutes and we don't get a clear winner within that 5 minutes? Is AEW going to try and shift our attention every single time we get a draw? That way the draw can stand and fans won't boo. That all still remains to be seen, but overall, I thought this was perfect. Post-match. which was maybe the biggest talking point coming out of this show. Good, bad, a lot of reasons. We'll start with the actual chair shot, because I want to talk more about the angle itself, but you have to talk about the chair shot. And here's what I'll say. I believe that AEW understands the severity and how serious the decision to go with an unprotected chair shot is. We know too much in 2019 to recklessly have unprotected chair shots with regularity. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think if we see them moving forward, it will be very, very sparingly. I think it's going to be incredibly rare for that to happen in AEW. I think that's why they took so many protections or precautions to try and make the chair as safe as possible, and I think that's why they addressed that in the post-show press conference. The one thing I wonder, and it's not to try and take any heat off AEW for the decision, but the people who are so upset with this, and I understand why. You're upset with it because you want safety for wrestlers, so how could anybody be wrong with that? I'm not even saying that I'm not upset with it, the wrestlers make the decision to go with that, and if that's part of their story, then you can't knock it. And when it's so effective, I understand that. So I feel like I understand both sides, but I'll say, for the people that were so bothered by it, I wonder if the chair didn't clip Cody in the back of the head, would there still be the same level of outrage? Because if the middle part of the chair connected with his skull the way it was intended, he wouldn't have been busted open. And he was checked for a concussion right away after, and he didn't have one. So it looks like the protections that they took in terms of what they actually gimmicked, because they said they gimmicked the chair, worked. Unfortunately, the back of the chair wasn't protected the same way and led to a big-time gash on the back of Cody's head. And again, I understand anybody who is incredibly upset by it, because you're looking for the safety of the wrestlers. I think that it's something that, if it calls for it, it can be acceptable, but you have to be incredibly safe about it, and it feels like AEW was probably as safe as they could be with this situation. The reason why I keep mentioning if it fits the story is because there's a video that was going around on Twitter with, after the fact, of Shawn Spears and Cody Rhodes in, I think, OVW or FCW, where Shawn Spears slides into the ring, unprotected chair shot to Cody's head. And it's why every single thing with Cody matters. He right now, all the small details with Cody and what he's doing matter. And that's exciting because you want everything that the company is doing to matter. You don't want to just forget about things a week later, 2 weeks later. And that's also really how we have the justification for why Shawn Spears did what Shawn Spears did. And that's why BTE and Road 2 are so important for AEW right now. They have about 30 minutes every week of YouTube content, and that's the substitute for television until we get television. And when Shawn Spears was announced as a member of the AEW roster, they cut to Cody watching the video saying, "Excited to have him, great hand." I believe that was the quote. Basically saying, he's going to be a really good guy for our young guys to coach them up, teach them, show them the ropes, good locker room presence, excited to bring him aboard. But not really taking him serious as a high-level wrestler who can challenge for championship gold. And I took note of that when that happened in Road 2. I didn't expect the payoff to be right away because I saw Shawn Spears' schedule. He was booked for the 29th, and he was booked for the 13th, and I guess he's able to get out of those bookings because obviously he was here, and he's going to be on Fight for the Fallen, so which is great. Glad to see him appear on those shows, but that now sets up what could be a really, really special feud here, because the beginnings of the feud with that chair shot was so effective. Someone like Shawn Spears, who has the 10-10-10 attached to his name, it's really hard, I think, to get fans to boo him because they have so much fun doing the 10. And when he hit the ring, everybody in the building, 10, 10, 10, completely ignoring the fact that there's a chair in his hand, ignoring the fact that he's there unexpectedly, just 10, having a great time, crack, chair shot, everybody in the building, their expressions change. It's, oh my God, what did I just see? And now Shawn Spears has the ability to be one of the biggest heels in the company. And it's fantastic. But I also love it because the heels that they have, there is legit reasoning behind it. Like, if you wanted to defend Shawn Spears, you could, right? Like, you could say it was disrespectful of Cody to look at him through the prism of just a player coach, of just someone who can teach the young guys. You can get behind the reasoning for Shawn Spears. And I think that is perfect, and it gets me excited. I cannot wait for this feud to continue. Something to keep in mind that happened on Road 2 was an interaction between MJF and Shawn Spears, where MJF is basically like, what the hell are you doing? Spears says, you want answers. He also tweeted this out. You want answers? Send JR. I'll talk to JR. That gets me very excited. I would say right now, JR he's had his moments on both sides of the spectrum, both good and both bad. I think he is still working off some rust that is expected, but also I don't know if he'll ever get back to peak JR. I don't know if peak JR even truly fits in 2019 as well as he did in the 90s. I just don't know if that's the case, and we'll find out. But JR hosting or interviewing Shawn Spears in this type of setting, in a special sit-down exclusive interview, I have no doubt about it. He's going to knock that out of the park, and it is going to be fantastic. And I love this role for JR because he has the most lucrative contract for a commentator ever. So it's not like they're going to be pulling him from behind the commentary desk for a while. But if at some point they feel like it suits them better to switch things around on that front, he still provides a ton of value backstage, but also in this role as a special interviewer. I really do believe that JR could be spectacular. I already cannot wait for the interview. I hope it really, really does come soon. Let me run down the rest of the stuff that we got on Fyter Fest. I'll go in order. Best Friends, Private Party, SCU. So good. This was one of the best matches on the show. For them to take the 15 or so minutes that they had and not just deliver such an exciting match, but a match that really did have a tremendous story where the two more seasoned tag teams looked down on the younger Private Party, kind of not taking them seriously, and then having to take them serious and earn their respect and all of that stuff, but also seeing the youth in Private Party who at a lot of times were busy celebrating big moves and big moments for themselves and not capitalizing. I thought it was so well done. And Private Party offered a full-time contract immediately after this match. Great job by AEW because they are one of the most promising tag teams in the world. I didn't realize that they weren't signed full-time, but glad to see that they are because they are... I mean, again, they look like $1 million. Coming out of the show, there are people who want them to be the first ever AEW tag champions. Who would have thought that? I thought that people would love them just based off the small clips, again, that I've seen of them. I had a feeling that people would love them. I think a lot of people had a feeling that they would get over. I didn't think that people were going to be on the edge of their seats begging for them to win the match that also featured Best Friends and SCU. It was tremendous stuff from them. We saw then another interaction between Best Friends and the Dark Order. That's probably the last thing on the show I'll talk about because I'm a little interested in how they're going to execute that. We had Allie versus Leva Bates the Librarian. Really impressed with Allie here. Nobody seems to like the Librarian gimmick. Nobody seems to like it. Here's what I'll say about that. If we remember how this gimmick came about, it was requested by Tony Khan on BTE for them to find a way to get this gimmick over. And they were saying that it was never going to happen, and they ended up casting 2 people to fill the role. Now, I am not going to go full galaxy brain and tell you that AEW is purposely putting Leva Bates and Peter Avalon in a position to not get over. It's not that they're getting heat. People aren't enjoying it. There's no way they're doing that on purpose. I cannot believe that. But it does give them an easy out of this gimmick that they can do on BTE while still keeping Leva Bates and Peter Avalon, if they want to, a part of this roster. I think that's something to keep in mind. I do want to say, I talked about it on one of the episodes, I'm not sure which one, about how Leva Bates and Peter Avalon actually could be pretty important for us finding out if we're going to get intergender wrestling in AEW. And Tony Khan just so happened to answer that in his post-show presser. And the answer is no. He gave 2 reasons. The domestic violence one is kind of a miss for me. They are not similar. But him talking about it, about keeping the divisions separate, makes a lot of sense. Again, when you're going to present this as a sport, it's sports-based wrestling, the separate divisions in terms of men's wrestling, women's wrestling, makes a ton of sense. And because that's not going to be a part of the librarian stuff here, I don't really know what the end result is for this gimmick, because it's certainly nowhere near a main event gimmick for either division. So I would keep in mind that the genesis of this idea for them was that they couldn't get it over. Again, not going to go full galaxy brain and saying that it was on purpose, but there's an easy out for them there. Jabali versus Nakazawa. People hated this. Totally understand why. Jabali's not a wrestler on a wrestling show. Makes sense. Right now, to me, I love everything Nakazawa was doing. The baby oil is hilarious. Really, really could have done without Jabali trying to give him a German suplex. That looked awful. And again, people who hated this, I get it. I thought it was funny. The one good thing is it's not like we have to wonder what's Jabali's next match. Jabali and Nakazawa were supposed to wrestle last year when Kenny was was putting together the CEO show. I just felt like it was something that they wanted to do on this show. I think it was important to Kenny. They did it. It's not going to happen again. I'm okay with it. CD versus SEMA. Perfect. Exactly what it was supposed to be. Sets up SEMA with momentum going into his match against Kenny Omega. Thought he looked fantastic. And CD now gets to do a bit of a rebuild story despite being 49 years old as he tries to find his footing in singles wrestling again. I love that. Nyla Rose versus Riho versus Yuka was fantastic. And what I love about this is they all have a direction now coming out of this match. Yuka, the sad face that she delivered after being pushed to the floor by Riho, she might be the biggest baby face in the company. Riho genuinely could be the first ever AEW Women's Champion. She is tremendous. And Nyla, the direction that they now can go with Nyla is so fantastic. First of all, I thought she looked tremendous in the match. She had a number of great moments that I loved. The guillotine knee drop off the top rope, fantastic. Do that all the time. And when she does it, she should beat everybody with it. I know she didn't in this match because she didn't go for a cover. And that's important here. Because when I talked about, I had Rio winning this match in my prediction, they added another layer to it that I didn't even think about, and it made it a lot better for Nyla, right? So there's Nyla's line of thinking that she is being dealt a bad hand. They add Awesome Kong to her match at Double or Nothing, and that's a genuine gripe, right? And probably even more so than Kylie Ray and Britt Baker, who were at the minimum preparing to deal with a woman of Awesome Kong size because they were preparing for Nyla Rose. Nyla Rose wasn't preparing for that, so I think that that's a genuine gripe that she has. Or when someone asked her at her post-fight presser about how the match at times against both Riho and Yuka felt like a handicap match, she said, yeah, what's that about? I don't like that. Feels like there's shenanigans going on, and someone's going to have to pay if this continues. So her justifying justifying losses in her head is perfect, because then there you have what commentary is providing us, where Nyla does have a level of complacency that seems to be costing her matches, hitting big moves that could have easily finished either opponent and then just not going for a cover or going for an incredibly lazy cover. I think that is fantastic. And instead of having her not be involved in the pinfall and her losing the match but not being pinned, they added an extra level to it now, to where that laziness and maybe lack of focus cost her a win and also got her pinned. I think that's fantastic. I love this match. Blew past my expectations. Really, really excited to see what the future holds for all three of these women. We then had the Fatal 4-Way. I was so wrong about what I thought I wanted, and I'm so excited to be wrong. Everybody who watches wrestling fantasy books, everybody, I did with this match, and I thought that what I thought was going to happen, I thought was perfect. I thought that MJF would win, Paige wouldn't get pinned, that MJF and Paige wrestle for the number one contender spot at Fight for the Fallen, and Paige beats him, goes on to face Jericho. And that was so wrong, because as they explained on commentary, Paige versus MJF is going to be one of the defining rivalries of AEW. And why do that now? Why do I need to hand MJF a pinfall loss at Fight for the Fallen? Keep these two apart and let them go into a full-on feud once television starts. That is perfect. And it also makes a ton of sense to get Paige as many victories as possible leading up to his match against Jericho. You want to position the AEW World Championship as the most important title in the world, well, then you need to have the most worthy challengers for that belt. And the way to do that is have the people that are challenging for it rack up victories. So I think the decision here to have Hangman pin Jimmy Havoc was perfect, and I thought everybody in this match looked fantastic. MJF right now, best wrestler on the mic, period. Maybe there are people that you believe, if given the opportunity, could be better, but until they're given that opportunity and show otherwise, you can debate over who's second. MJF right now, best on the mic in the business, period. Talked about Cody Darby already. We had the Elite versus Lucha Bros and Laredo Kid. Match, fantastic. What did you expect, right? 6 fantastic wrestlers all in the ring together. Of course it was going to be good. The real interesting thing coming out of this was Kenny making a point to somewhat issue a challenge to Pentagon post-match. They're going to have this match, actually, there's going to be a rematch for this at Triple Mania, which is AAA's biggest show of the year, and I will talk a little bit more about that in this video. They're going to have a rematch at Triple Mania. Maybe it would have made sense, that post-match interaction, if it was going to take place at Triple Mania, but it's not. And it makes me wonder, when then could we see Kenny versus Penta? It's obviously not happening in Fight for the Fallen, has a match. Not happening at All Out, has a match. By the time we get to TV, you would like to think that the Lucha Bros are going to be involved in the tag team tournament. So maybe they were just acknowledging their history with All In. The one thing it did for me is remind me that not only are the Lucha Bros one of the best tag teams in the world, but individually, Penta and Phoenix are 2 of the best wrestlers in the world that absolutely can be your world champion. And those are 2 of the most valuable wrestlers that any company could have on their roster, and AEW is incredibly lucky to have them on their roster. Last match was Moxley Janela, and this match was exactly what it needed to be. I think the level of violence, the level of hardcore that you got on this match is a perfect look into what AEW is going to be giving you. It is higher than any major wrestling company is giving you right now. No major high-level wrestling company is giving you this level of hardcore, in my opinion. But it is not too far. It is not CZW. It is not deathmatch wrestling. It's not light tubes. It is not repeated unprotected chair shots. It's not screwdrivers being driven into people's heads. It's none of that. It is cringe. It might be watching through the eyes. Someone getting thumbtacks put into their feet, that was insane. Certainly can make you cringe. But overall, I thought it was a perfect representation of how AEW is going to do hardcore. And also, I just thought, Joey, again, a star, looks like a star, but Moxley looks so comfortable right now in his character, and he is nailing it in every way. When the crowd is chanting, "You sick," and he steps out of the ring to bow, that is so perfect. He is clicking on all cylinders right now, and I cannot wait for him versus Omega at All Out. I think it is going to be absolutely special. Overall, I thought Fyter Fest was really good. Not as good as Double or Nothing. I didn't expect it to be as good as Double or Nothing. But I thought it was a really good second show. And I think at a lot of points it delivered. And ultimately, it just introduced us to a lot more stars, right? Darby Allin, Private Party, and then furthering along like Jungle Boy and MJF, and again, even Riho and Nyla Rose. I thought there were a lot of people that looked fantastic on this show. Let's move forward now to some of the big news pieces surrounding AEW. A couple of things that I want to talk about that came out of Road 2. And then I mentioned I'm going to talk about Best Friends versus Dark Order, but I do want to talk about Triple Mania. Here's why. Some of the big names in AEW are going to be there. I mentioned Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks will have their Fyter Fest rematch at Triple Mania against the Lucha Bros and Laredo Kid. This is kind of odd to me that Triple A is cool with just getting straight rematches from AEW. But it is also would be really weird, I think, for AEW to just keep running these matches back for AAA and having the other team win, because it then does get a little 50-50 booking, and I know it's different companies, but like the last time we saw the Young Bucks, right, in AEW, they were the AAA Tag Team Champions. We then saw them at Fyter Fest. They weren't. So this does matter, right? And it wouldn't shock me to see actually maybe the same result. Maybe Kenny Omega pins Laredo Kid again, but also them getting the win back wouldn't surprise me either. I'm excited for the match again. It was a great match. Who wouldn't be excited to watch this again? I just do think it's a little odd for them to just keep running things back. The big thing that comes out of this show, it is so, I promise you it is important, is Cody Rhodes on this card is in a 6-man tag, and one of his partners is Cain Velasquez, former UFC heavyweight champion, making his wrestling debut. I'm telling you, this is a big deal. It is a big deal because Cain Velasquez has that mainstream appeal. He has that name recognition that AEW wants. There was a conversation a while ago before TV was announced that TNT really wanted AEW to put together a strong roster with big names that made them more marketable. And they have Jericho, all the guys from the Elite, Moxley. Cain Velasquez fits that billing. He absolutely does. And there's going to be a ton of comparisons to Brock Lesnar, as there should be. I mean, not just because of the UFC backgrounds, but they literally fought in the UFC for the World Heavyweight Champion. But AEW can present him in a different way. We can get into all of that depending how he looks on this show. But it is not a coincidence that he is wrestling with Cody on this show. If he looks good, do not be surprised to see Cain Velasquez end up a member of the AEW roster. And if he is a member of the AEW roster, he absolutely has the chance to compete at the top of the card. I think that this is must-watch for all AEW fans. Now, maybe it ends up a dud. I mean, it is his debut, so you can't judge him too harshly, but he has been training at this, I believe, for a while. This could have major implications for the AEW roster moving forward. Two things then that I want to talk about from Row 2. First of all, match announcement for Fight for the Fallen. Very, very excited for this. It is going to be Darby Allin, Joey Janela, and Jimmy Havoc against Sammy Guevara, MJF, Shawn Spears. Couple things. First of all, how MJF and Shawn Spears could stand on the same apron together, beyond me. I'm sure they will find some way to address that on the next episode of Road 2. I assume, though, they will probably end up imploding, and it's going to cost their team overall the match. Expectations as of now. On the other side of it, though, this is a situation where pairing all of these guys together makes sense. It is not just saying, let's grab 3 baby faces, put them together here. They're going to get along because they're baby faces. No, these 3 guys in Darby Allin, Janela, and Havoc all have a similar background. It would make sense that they then would be able to have mutual respect for the 2 other guys that they're tagging with and can get on the same page for the common goal of getting a win against MJF, Spears, and Sammy. Makes a ton of sense. One thing I want to mention, Darby Allin called himself, Janela, and Havoc Mount Rushmore of violence. Need a 4th. If you're going to be Mount Rushmore, Moxley, all I'm saying is, if they do Mount Rushmore of violence faction with Moxley, Janela, Allin, and Havoc, please just do it. Just do it. It will be so special. Do it. Like, really just do it. Because, like, think about it, though, right? Like, if they do that faction, it's gonna be special. I love factions, so that's part of my reasoning. But also, it would be fantastic. And, like, AEW is gonna need some teams for the tag team tournament. So, Havoc and Janela as a tag team, and Moxley is one of your top guys, and Allin as another top guy, like, maybe fighting for a mid-card title. That might make a ton of sense. I'm just saying, if you're looking for a faction, the Mount Rushmore of violence is right there. So do it. Maybe? We'll see. Again, it's probably just tongue-in-cheek stuff from Darby on Twitter, but it really, I think it would be fantastic. Comment down below, would you love to see the Mount Rushmore of violence faction? Last thing from this episode of Road 2, and then I want to just finish up with something I've been thinking about with the Best Friends Dark Order stuff. The Brandy segment was fantastic, and AEW continues to do a great job getting you invested in everybody in the ring. Brandy is probably the one person that has that higher upper management position where her getting victories could end up feeling like an effect of her having that position, because Kenny, the Bucks, and Cody are all well-established wrestlers. Brandy just isn't a well-established wrestler. We know she's trained, we know she's had matches, but she's not well-established like them. But when you add this background to her, like they did at Road 2, you are able to go from Brandy being in this match because she's the chief Brandy officer, and Brandy being somewhat of an authority heel figure. You go from that to, I now really, really want her to win because of the story that they told on Road 2 about her seemingly always choking at the biggest moments in her life. You get behind someone like that. You just do. And you add that background, and you now start to think about how hard she has probably worked for this moment. And that is just something that AEW has consistently been able to do well. And I am incredibly, I'm so invested now in the match between Brandy and Allie. I didn't expect that to be the case. Of course, you're interested in it, but to be invested is completely different. And that's now how I feel after the episode of Road 2. Last thing here. I know it's been a long show, but that's what happens when you have to do every single thing together. Again, made a mistake. Should have recapped Fyter Fest. So earlier, my bad. Here's the last thing. The Dark Order, when they cut their promo, they said basically their first match is going to be Best Friends. I'm confused as to how they're going to pull this off. Dark Order right now, both times they've appeared for AEW has been kind of random, and it hasn't been in a match, and it hasn't hit 100%. And in order for the Dark Order to really start connecting, they need to have a match. They're a very, very good tag team. They're incredibly talented. They need to have a match, to add the validity to what they're doing. I believe that the supernatural in wrestling has its place. I think that it can be good. I think that the Dark Order can be very good, but they need credibility, because when you are a winning team, right? When you're winning as a supernatural character, it then feels very important and very, very powerful. When you're losing as a supernatural character, you just come off kind of like a joke, really. And they need the Dark Order to start coming out and winning matches. Here's why this is throwing me off a bit. The Best Friends realistically should not have a match until All Out. And the match at All Out, they earned by winning at Fyter Fest. Their opponent at All Out would make a lot of sense. It would be for another triple threat tag match to take place, and the winner face the Best Friends at All Out. That's what makes the most sense. So where does the Dark Order come in? Because if their first match is going to be Best Friends, then they're probably not in the qualifier. And it makes no sense for them to wrestle, in my opinion, at Fight for the Fallen, because you really should not have the Best Friends lose. At least for me, the Best Friends losing before All Out, like on Fight for the Fallen, that just feels like that'd be a mistake. And the Dark Order losing their first match also feels like a mistake. And I just don't know how they're going to execute this. And holding the Dark Order off until TV, I don't think they can do that. So there's a lot of questions for me there. The thing, though, that is making me really, really rack my brain over this, the Dark Order versus Best Friends is booked for PWG. I believe the card is happening July 26th. This card also features Joey Janela versus Jungle Boy and MJF versus Darby Allin. And I just wonder if PWG is running a show in partnership with AEW. Some of the problems with one of the teams in Best Friends or the Dark Order having to lose still exist if this match takes place at PWG, but I wonder if maybe there is a PWG AEW partnership. We know that the Young Bucks go way back in PWG, and they have a great relationship there, and it wouldn't surprise me. And it is a way to get that match set up. And something I also noticed is the main event of that show on July 26th for PWG is a tag team ladder match. And it features LAX versus the Rascals. And we talked about LAX potentially being a team that AEW could be looking at. So if the main event is a tag match, could maybe the Young Bucks just show up in PWG? I don't know. I'm really, really trying to figure out when the Dark Order Best Friends match is going to take place, because I can't figure it out. But it's also adding to the confusion that the match is booked July 26th on a PWG show. And I know that AEW is going to let these guys work where they want to work, but you'd like to think that they would tell PWG, hey, please don't run one of the feuds we're setting up on your show. So are they intentionally running this for AEW? Will AEW help them stream it? Will it be aired on their YouTube channel maybe a day or two later? I don't know. Something I've been thinking about, that maybe that July 26th show for PWG could be important for AEW, and maybe something that they, to some degree, run in partnership with AEW. Something to think about. Would love your comments down below, because I really don't have a definitive answer, and I'm wondering what you guys think about when we could see Dark Order versus Best Friends, and if maybe that PWG show is more than just a PWG show. That will do it here for the episode today. Really long one. Appreciate you guys who decided to stop by and watch it all the way through. Please do subscribe to the channel, and make sure you follow me over on Twitter. Link will be in the description. Thank you guys so much. It's a long video. Thank you guys so much for stopping by, and I'll see you next time.